Good evening, I'm Mark Kiesling.
And I'm Julie Williams. And there is so much history in the buildings in southern Illinois, and there are business owners who want to keep that history alive.
News 3's Paul Wilcoxon joins us from Herrin tonight, where he talked with some of those business owners. Paul, what have you got for us?
Good afternoon, Mark and Julie. Yeah, I'm sitting inside the current location of Stim's Cafe and Coffee Shop, where owners Jason and Trish Stim, they had an idea that they wanted to bring a certain style of restaurant to downtown Herrin.
For more than 2 years, Jason and Trish Stim have been living a lifelong dream of owning their own mom and pop restaurant.
We just decided to go for it. And it's something we just wanted to do, and it fell into our lap, so we took the leap of faith and did it.
The couple opened Stim's Cafe and Coffee Shop in downtown Herrin. They took over an already established business and spent time working on branding the business toward their style of customer service.
And it really benefited on the offset, and people in the surrounding area, Herrin in particular, have been very supportive of us.
They also took over and opened the business toward the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, just as things were starting to open back up again.
It presented an opportunity. There was a whole community of people that really were wanting restaurants to open back up again.
Since then, the Stims have seen a steady flow of people coming in and out of their restaurant. It's to the point where they know it's time to find a new location.
For the most part, especially on a weekend, Friday, Saturday, where there's just no tables.
So they decided to relocate from one historic building in downtown Herrin to another, 2 blocks down the road to the former Annex Theater. And as far as Trish is concerned, she fell in love with the building the moment she set eyes on it.
We love stories behind buildings and the life, the memories, all the things that you can just imagine that goes on in an older building is just fascinating to us.
Their current building, which was built around the turn of the century, can seat around 40 people. The new location will allow Stims to be creative when it comes to hosting more events as well as more people.
We've heard a lot. I'm so glad something else is coming into this building. I'm so glad. And they're very supportive. They're excited. They're happy that it's another food and coffee establishment.
Is the last day at the current location here in Herrin. They're going to be moving a couple blocks down the road. Hopefully around July the 7th is when they're planning on opening up their new location. But as you can see right now, I'm just about ready to enjoy my dinner here. So I'm going to have to say goodbye to you guys out there. So reporting live in Herrin, Paul Wilcoxon, News 3.
Good evening, I'm Mark Kiesling.
And I'm Julie Williams. And a lot of southern Illinois' development really relies on economic growth.
And it's that growth that has one restaurant owner telling News 3 relocating his business to Williamson County is a dream come true. Our Paul Wilcoxon has more from Marion.
Relocating a business is often uneasy, especially one with an established following like Seasoning Bistro in Benton. But sometimes changes have to be made.
We have just grown exponentially every year, we've gotten bigger and bigger. So, we kind of outgrown our space.
Seasoning Bistro opened more than a decade ago, and as the opportunity to find a new location opened up, owner and chef Troy Ray says he could not be more happy with where he's moving his restaurant.
This has always been my dream, is to be back in Marion.
Seasoning Bistro is set to open at a new location on the Marion Square. Ray says it's more than likely going to be around the first part of 2024. Steve Fowler purchased the building about 3 years ago, and the condition was less than ideal.
It was in terrible shape. It was probably inches from having to be destroyed.
But where most often would see a building on its last leg, Fowler and Ray each saw its potential.
Our current situation is pretty slapped together. As we went, we just kind of did what we had to do. This is going to be hand designed from the ground up.
According to Fowler, the building was constructed during the Civil War era.
There was some awesome history with this building. I mean, it was built sometime in the 1860s. It's just been a great big part of our history here.
The new location will allow Ray to expand Seasoning Bistro in ways his current location couldn't allow. But Ray assures those loyal customers the new location will still provide the same vibe and energy they've come to expect, while also providing an opportunity for a new experience.
We like the old brick. We like more eclectic things that have character. This is going to be pretty brand new with still some character.
The new spot will allow Seasoning Bistro to expand in a variety of other ways, including a fully stocked bar, more seating area, a full kitchen, private dining area, patio space, and larger bathrooms.
It's always been a big dream of mine to be back on the Marion Square, and now that they're really putting a lot of effort into fixing it up down here, I mean, to pass up this opportunity would just be not a good decision on my part, really.
Reporting in Marion, Paul Wilcoxon, News 3.
We've been looking at how local people are breathing new life into historic buildings in southern Illinois. And tonight, one woman says she has a passion to make her hometown a better place to live. News 3's Paul Wilcoxon introduces us.
Was in disrepair, and I knew it was basically an eyesore in town, and I knew it needed to be saved.
Developer Jennifer Spence took her biggest challenge back in 2019 to turn this property into something more representative of Carterville and southern Illinois.
I have a love for historic preservation. I have a passion for this. You'll find me down here on nights and weekends often.
Spence is from Carterville, but up until about a decade ago, she spent 20 years living in Nashville, Tennessee.
I would come home and just be sad.
After renovating 2 other properties in the Carterville downtown area, Spence decided her next challenge would be the 4,600 square feet building at 131 South Division Street in downtown Carterville.
Originally, I think, was Montgomery's Place. It's painted on the side of the building, and that was a tavern back in the day that had a monkey with a pump organ and a tin cup and would go up to the city well to drive up business, according to the first history book.
Her drive and passion are on display throughout the building, as Spence is responsible for as much of the renovation as possible.
There's something satisfying about tearing down a wall and seeing a site that nobody else can see and making it beautiful.
To the best of her knowledge, Spence says the building was built in the early 1900s and featured several businesses throughout the years.
It's a massive building in a lot of ways, but there's 3 distinct areas, and there's a lot of build outs that are geared for a food and beverage tenant, particularly coffee, if that works out.
Spence also admits she wasn't fully aware of the investment it would be to renovate the building, but as she looks at what's been accomplished all these last 3 years, she has no regrets.
When you're doing something like this, it's like eating an elephant one bite at a time. You just navigate that and you focus on the wins.
But Spence knows her work is paying off to make Carterville a better place to live and more appealing to visitors.
I look back now at the before pictures and just think, wow, look what we did, you know, so that's satisfying, and I think the community appreciates it.
Reporting in Carterville, Paul Wilcoxon, News 3.
And if you know of any preservation projects or anyone who's working to restore their hometown, you can email us or Paul at that email on your screen. Churches and places of worship are part of what make up Southern Illinois' rich history. News 3's Paul Wilcoxon takes us over to Jackson County for our series on historic buildings.
It really is a close-knit community.
Driving along Ava Road in Jackson County, you could run across the building where Pleasant Hill Christian Church members meet each week.
It's been here a while, so you know it's kind of firm ground.
The start of the church predates the Civil War, but it started out as a Baptist church.
It was 1875 or thereabout that became a Christian church, and that's when we moved up here. It was just down the road, and the guys started in a house and then went to the barn.
Once the congregation outgrew the house the members were meeting at, it was decided a new building would be constructed.
They built a new building here in, I'm going to say, 1875. Kind of primitive, up in the air, blocks, and of course you didn't have running water and electricity to worry about.
That setup was fairly simple, even for standards of the 1870s, lacking a baptistry, piano, or organ. So a new church was built in 1895, and that's the basis of the church that's standing today.
Building only 20 years old when they decided that they needed this one, so they actually built on this same location.
Time and technological advances have helped the church make its way through several remodels, but as church historian John Carpenter says, the essence of the small church feel still exists within its walls.
Those windows been in there since 1895, so this part of it has the character of what it was years ago.
And according to Carpenter, it's that character and small close-knit family they've developed with each other that's allowed them to keep going all these years.
There's an old expression, small churches are small because they want to be. There is some loyalty that you do find in the country that you don't find in the cities.
Even with the history of the building, Carpenter says those attending each week always keep what's important in mind.
People get too attached to the building and not to the church. And the church is the people and not the building. Everything we do is based from the scriptures. The church is about Christ, and if you don't get that across, then we're just a social club.
Reporting in Jackson County, Paul Wilcoxon, News 3.
Borough's Masonic Lodge has been around since the Civil War, and they say it's kind of like a time capsule for today's generation. We'll finish our week-long series of historical buildings in Murfreesboro tonight. News 3's Paul Wilcoxon takes us there.
Sitting just a block from the Jackson County Courthouse is the Murfreesboro Masonic Lodge number 498.
We're pretty intricately tied to the community.
The building itself was constructed in the 1920s, but the history of the Freemasons in Murfreesboro goes back to the 1860s.
One of our credos is making good men better. In doing that, making the community around us better is part of our goal and our ambition.
For instance, the lodge was used as a makeshift hospital and morgue after the 1925 tri-state tornado. The organization has a history of giving back to the community, but according to Worshipful Master William Thomas, that reputation has waned over the years.
One of the detriments I think that have happened so far is that the community has forgotten that we're here.
But architectural historian Dr. Rachel Malcolm Enzer says that's something she wants to change, and it starts with sharing the history of the building.
This building is just an amazing piece. It's in what we call pristine condition. Everything from the benches to the accoutrement on the walls to the stained glass windows was put in this building for the most part in 1920.
That's also why Malcolm Enzer is leading the way to have the building placed on the National Historic Registry, a process that's less than easy.
We had to write a letter to ask to apply.
That's certainly an understatement, as Malcolm Enzer explains.
What we had to do is we had to write a letter to ask to apply. And that letter's not just a letter. It involves a great deal of research and central questions that they ask.
Malcolm Enzer is also the owner of Southern Illinois Historical Preservation, and getting to work is exactly what they did. Just recently, they received a response to their letter.
We got the answer. Yes, the committee has approved it to make an application.
Malcolm Enzer says the application is just the next step and what she hopes will be a positive outcome in the end.
It's saving small-town Americana. And I have this real deep feeling that this is where families like the family I raised of 6 kids is where you want to be.
Reporting in Murfreesboro, Paul Wilcoxon, News 3.